Mike and I had another breakup argument. This time I wanted to handle it like when he first brought up breaking up at 18 and go to the beach to cool off. But when I got there I found the beach was too cold, so I decided to head back. On the way back I passed by a dessert shop and I thought I would be too heartbroken to eat like when I was 20. But to my surprise the desserts there were so good that I enjoyed a lot. Finally I got home and I thought I would do the same thing I did at 22, 23, and 24, beg Mike to take me back after his usual breakup routine. But then I realized the boss had assigned me a business trip. A month went by quickly and my career was flourishing during the time. Mike, finally unable to hold back, called me. "Why haven't you called to apologize yet?" That's when I realized I had forgotten to call Mike to reconcile. So I tentatively asked him, "I'm sorry, I've been so busy lately that I forgot to contact you. How about we just break up for good?" My friends were chatting, saying Mike was planning to propose to me. Mike just smiled casually, clearly indifferent. "I don't need to propose, Emily will definitely marry me. Then I'll have Isabel be the maid of honor, she's been asking me about it for a while now." The emphasis of his words seemed more like he cared more about having his childhood friend Isabel as the maid of honor than about actually marrying me. I took a sip of water and spoke up. "I already have my maid of honor, my college roommate Lily. We promised each other that no matter who gets married first would be the bridesmaid." Mike didn't even look at me and simply said, "Well, then just add one more. I don't like too many bridesmaids." He got a little irritated and said, "Isabel has never been a maid of honor, can't you just give her a chance?" The friends around us fell silent. They were used to our random squabbles. They never get involved because I always end up apologizing, and after Mike plays his usual cold act for a couple of days, everything goes back to normal. No one wants to be a peacemaker in this kind of relationship. This time I said with firm resolve, "No thank you. It's my wedding and I want to make the decisions." Mike walked up to me and asked, "What if I insist?" I didn't respond, but Mike already understood I was rejecting him. He got angry and shouted, "Then let's break up. Emily, don't contact me again." He slammed the door and left. The remaining friends looked at each other, feeling awkward about the whole situation. I gave a quick greeting before they all started teasing. "Emily, be more confident. Don't be sad about what Mike just said. You'll win him back. Just go apologize and everything will be fine." I smiled but didn't comment further. I walked alone, stopping now and then, trying to clear my mind. Thoughts of the years I spent with Mike flooded my brain. We had first fallen for each other in high school, then confirmed our relationship in college. We made it through the challenges of a long-distance relationship and survived the difficult phase of living together. At every stage we had faced failures, and each time I had given my all to fix things. I often asked myself why. Does loving someone really have to be this humble? Shouldn't love be about mutual compromise and support? But every time I made up my mind to leave him, another voice would pop up, asking me, "If you give up now, doesn't that mean all your efforts over the years were just a joke?" So I gritted my teeth and pressed on, still hoping, still waiting, hoping I could move him, hoping we'd truly have a future. As my thoughts wandered, I passed by that river, the one I used to jokingly call Tears River. It was near our school, and since my first heartbreak, it had witnessed the countless tears I shed in this relationship. But today it seemed colder than usual. Before I could even get sentimental, goosebumps crept up my arms. I quickly pulled my coat tighter and decided to head home to be sad in peace. Just as I turned around, I saw the dessert shop. It's funny, really, this shop was a frequent stop for me. Once, after a heated argument with Mike, I came here, my anger clouding my mind. I ordered several different pies, but because I was still upset, I couldn't bring myself to enjoy them. The owner's baking skills had only improved over time. After dinner with friends, I was once again drawn in by the rich aroma of brownies coming from the oven. This time I didn't order too much, fearing the same disappointment. But after finishing one brownie, I found myself wanting more. So I ordered another pie. As I busily savored the treats, my stomach felt content and somehow my heart felt less empty. After finishing the dessert, I went back home. But as I stood at the doorstep, I hesitated. After living with Mike for so long, the little house was filled with traces of our shared life. But when I opened the door and saw the overflowing trash bags that hadn't been replaced, the empty drink bottles that hadn't been thrown away, and the shoes scattered carelessly around, my anger seemed to outweigh the sadness of the breakup. It was as though the fire of my anger had burned away all my tears. After cleaning up everything, I opened my phone, planning to delete some of the photos of Mike and me, fearing that I'd regret it later. Just then, I noticed a message from my boss in the work group chat, giving me some feedback on my proposal for a project that I'm working on. By the time I finished handling work on the computer, the sky was beginning to lighten. To my surprise, the first day after the breakup had passed so easily. So, on this brand new morning, I took a deep breath and blocked all of Mike's contact information. Mike still hadn't come back. I knew he was waiting for me to apologize and beg him to come home. I also thought I would give in again this time. After all, I was used to it and it didn't seem like such a disrespectful thing to let go of my pride for love. But every time I reached for my phone, something more important would interrupt me, either a meeting or a client to attend to. In the midst of all this busyness, I realized that it had been almost 8 or 9 days since I last contacted him. Without even realizing it, I had done something I never thought was possible, and I didn't feel the emotional torment I had expected. One morning, during the weekly meeting, the manager told us about an important client who needed someone to go on business trip to Los Angeles and stay there until the project ended, which would take at least a year and a half. Without thinking, I raised my hand. The manager looked at me and said, "Emily, I really want you to go, but this will take a year and a half. Are you sure you can commit? Don't you have a boyfriend?" I immediately responded, "I'm single now." The whole meeting room burst into laughter. There was no hiding it. Everyone already knew the situation between Mike and me. But after a lot of discussion, no one else was willing to go. After all, leaving the headquarters for a year and a half meant that returning afterward could lead to an awkward position in the company, and it wasn't the best move for their career trajectory. But for me, the main benefit was not just escaping from Mike and getting some clarity on my emotions. More importantly, Los Angeles, where the client was, had always been a city I wanted to live in. Mike had always refused to leave here. For him, no place was more comfortable than staying here, so he never wanted to go. Even when I suggested a trip, he firmly refused to let me go to Los Angeles, and my friends joked that he was afraid I'd go and never come back. I could only laugh at that. In the end, the manager chose me since I was the only one who volunteered. Before I left, he warned me repeatedly, "You can't quit halfway. No matter what happens with your boyfriend, you need to stick it out for the whole year and a half." I smiled and replied, "Mission accepted." The first few days in Los Angeles were incredibly busy. I worked 2 straight weeks of overtime, barely finding time to look for a place to stay, and had to stay in the hotel arranged by the client. It wasn't until the 3rd weekend that I finally had some time to explore. It was just as beautiful as I'd seen in the magazines, but being here in person, I could appreciate the many different aspects of its charm. I thought to myself, I really made the right choice by coming here. I was a little surprised when I received a call from my mom. It had been over a year since our last argument, when we parted on bad terms. Ever since I turned 25, they had been urging me to marry Mike, and now, at 30, they still hadn't seen any results. So they had secretly found Mike's contact information in my phone and reached out to him. I could already imagine how harsh their conversation must have been, and sure enough, Mike didn't speak to me for an entire month after that call. My mom has a really pleasant voice, but I never understood how she could say such uncomfortable and upsetting things. She asked, "You're not really planning to wait until you're 40 to get married, are you? My God, do you want me to become an old woman who can't walk before you have your wedding? You wouldn't be that cruel, would you? Mom, even as an old woman you'll still be healthy, maybe even faster than me. Stop exaggerating. I don't have time for your nonsense. Your sister told me you and Mike broke up. Is it true? You two would always get back together in no time before, but this time, I feel like something's wrong. It's been days without a word. Did you finally break up for good?" I sighed impatiently. "Just get to the point, I'm busy with work. You have your father's temper, no wonder the two of you can't stand being in the same room. If you don't stop, I'm hanging up." I could hear her voice quickly becoming anxious. "Don't hang up, I just wanted to say if you're free this weekend, I know a good young man introduced by your Aunt Lucy. You should meet him. He works in the same city as you." "Oh, he might not be in the same city now. I forgot to mention, I switched cities for work." My mom's voice suddenly got louder. "Why on earth did you change jobs again? You've always been like this, making decisions without telling me anything." I didn't want to argue with her again, nor did I want to make her upset, so I reluctantly asked, "Who's the person you want to introduce to me?" Just a moment ago, my mom's voice had been so loud and confident, but now she hesitated, saying, "Lucy says it's the son of your cousin's boss." I heard he's got a good background. Would you consider it? I couldn't understand how she could say that without feeling guilty. The last time Aunt Lucy tried to set me up with someone, it turned out to be a robber. After I repeatedly refused, she even gave him my address. If Mike hadn't come back just in time that day in that dark stairwell, I don't even know what would have happened. I later found out that the guy was the son of one of Aunt Lucy's clients. In an attempt to please the client, Lucy didn't bother to check him out and just gave my mom a photo of me, which she sent to him. When he expressed some interest, she eagerly passed along my address. I had no idea about any of this until after the fact. When I later considered reporting it to the police, Aunt Lucy flat out told me she wouldn't testify for me because she couldn't afford to offend that client. The matter was swept under the rug. I never expected this to happen again this year. If my mom were standing in front of me right now, I'd definitely be watching her closely to see if she'd turn red with embarrassment. I suppressed my anger and said, "I'm not going to agree to Aunt Lucy's request. You know what kind of person she is." My mom's voice came through the phone, continuing, "Are you sure? Must you speak so sarcastically? It's just that the person Lucy introduced to you last year took advantage of you a little," and she cried and apologized afterward. "You didn't know anything about him. Otherwise, why would she have introduced him to you?" I really didn't feel like arguing anymore. If you didn't know the situation, why would you still go ahead and introduce someone? I said, "Tell Lucy not to use me for favors. If she tries again, don't be surprised if I lose it on her. Don't blame me if she thinks I'm crazy next time." My mom's voice got sharp. "You're really ungrateful." The moment I hung up, the world around me felt quiet for the first time. I had never realized how beautiful silence could be. With newfound clarity, I efficiently revised a project proposal and sent it off to the client. Moments later, they responded with positive feedback, complimenting my work result. In their words, I felt a sense of validation, a small but solid piece of self-confidence forming within me. Feeling relaxed, I casually posted on Instagram, "Wrapped up work, another easy day." The comments poured in quickly. "Emily, you're such a workaholic now. We've been trying to meet up for a week and turns out you've been buried in work at home? Girl, you're too busy with work. Someone's about to steal your boyfriend, you know that? Why haven't you taken down your breakup post yet? Don't tell me you guys haven't made up? Maybe you didn't try hard enough to surprise Mike this time? You haven't gone to beg him back?" I replied to each one, "I'm on a business trip. Let's meet when I'm back. I don't have a boyfriend. Who's there to steal? I'm not getting back with him." As soon as I finished typing, my phone rang. It was Anna, one of our mutual friends. He and I used to hang out a lot with Mike. "Hey Emily, what are you up to? Work been busy lately?" She hesitated for a moment before lowering her voice. "You're still not back, huh? I stopped by your place the other day and knocked, but you weren't there. I'm in LA now. Won't be back anytime soon." She quickly said, "I haven't seen you in a while. I wanted to catch up. I have time now if you want to chat." Her voice got even quieter before she finally said, "Have you heard about Mike and Isabel?" I answered honestly, "Not really. Been too busy to keep up with anything." I had no interest in discussing them, but she kept going anyway. "Mike and Isabel have been everywhere together lately, showing up at parties as a pair. And for Isabel's birthday, Mike gave her a huge diamond ring. Everyone's speculating they might be a couple. But Mike won't confirm it, probably because he's still waiting for you to apologize." I suddenly laughed. Before she could react, I asked, "Apologize? For what?" She paused, caught off guard. "Wait, what? But you always apologized first. I just assumed I used to apologize because I cared. But what if I don't care anymore?" Right as I finished speaking, I heard a cough on the other end. Then a loud door slam. Anna awkwardly wrapped up the call a few moments later. Honestly, the moment Anna spoke, I already knew Mike was with her. We had been together for too long. I knew everyone's habits, their personalities, their tells. Anna had always been straightforward, never one to beat around the bush. But today, she sounded like someone was watching her, like she was carefully choosing her words. The moment I answered the call, I had sensed something was off. Hours later, Anna sent me a long message. She started by apologizing for what happened, then talked about Mike and Isabel, and finally ended with, "Mike definitely regrets it. He's been crashing at my place for 3 days, pestering me until I finally agreed to call you. He doesn't even like Isabel that much, but I still feel bad for you. Emily, I've always thought you were amazing. No matter what, I just want you to be happy." And was a kind girl. And I wondered, had she purposely acted strange so I'd figure it out? But in the end it didn't matter. What mattered was that I actually felt happy right now. That afternoon the first blocked call appeared on my screen. Mike. It was almost laughable. I had been gone for nearly a month. And this was the first time he had called me, only after his little test through Anna had failed. For the first time I looked back at the past years with Mike and thought none of it was worth it. Then a text message popped up from an unknown number. Emily, where did you put my suitcase? So this is how the man I loved for more than 10 years will act in this situation. No emotion. No hesitation. No regret. Even now he couldn't lower his pride. Even with such a flimsy excuse, he had to sound arrogant, as if saying one kind word to me might kill him. I didn't respond. But later that night, after a long evening meeting, I had a brief moment of weakness and picked up his call. Through the phone, Mike's familiar voice came through, low and slightly hoarse. Where are you? In my office. Why did you block me? I answered calmly, because we broke up. His voice rose slightly. So breaking up means you have to block me? We've broken up so many times before, why didn't you block me then? I replied just as smoothly, how do you know I didn't? In all our past breakups, did you ever try calling me? Wasn't it always me apologizing and begging to get back together? He repeated the question. Where are you? It was the end of the workday and my colleagues were passing by saying their goodbyes. I got distracted, returning their greetings, completely forgetting Mike was still on the line. After a long moment, I realized the call hadn't ended. I said hello. His voice came through, softer now. This is the first time you / ever ignored me. I didn't have a response because he was right. But I also didn't need to justify myself anymore. Mike continued, did you move to Los Angeles? So I answered without hesitation, yeah, I'm here for work. This time. His voice dropped noticeably. You never used to take business trips. You always said if you left, there'd be no one to take care of me. You always put me first. I wanted to laugh. I also wanted to cry. A wave of emotions crashed over me and I told myself, Emily, you spent years putting a selfish person first. Now it's time to put yourself first. I steadied my voice and said, didn't you say that once we broke up, we shouldn't contact each other anymore? I'm just following your words. Since we don't talk anymore, there's no reason for me to refuse work trips for you. You know I gave up so many opportunities for you over the years. But what? He hesitated for a long time, so long that I knew he had nothing real to say. So after that prolonged silence, I hung up. It was the kind of call that should have been heartbreaking. He knew I was leaving him behind, but he still couldn't say anything to stop me. But thankfully, I had prepared for this moment over the course of many long years. Or maybe my heart, scarred and worn down, had already gone completely numb. I wasn't sad anymore. I only felt free. And I hoped that this was the final goodbye. The day I finally signed the lease on my new place in Los Angeles, I invited my coworkers over for a small housewarming gathering. We walked out of the office together, chatting and laughing, when suddenly someone outside stood out like a sore thumb. One of my colleagues joked, I don't think this building has ever seen someone this handsome before. I followed their gaze and that's when I saw him. Mike. It had been a month since I last saw him. Since we ended our long-distance relationship after college, we had never spent this much time apart. But now it didn't feel like a big deal anymore. Mike walked toward me with purpose, his eyes locked onto mine. My coworkers exchanged glances, their curiosity practically radiating off them. One of them, sensing the tension, cleared their throat and said, looks like Emily's busy tonight. Let's reschedule. For the first time I realized that sometimes people being too perceptive isn't always a good thing. But Mike, he didn't seem to mind. He even took a moment to politely greet them. Then as soon as they were gone, he turned back to me. He stared at me for a long time before finally asking, Emily, why haven't you come back to me yet? At that moment I felt completely drained. I had spent years pouring everything I had into this relationship, nurturing it, sustaining it, keeping it alive. Yet somehow, I had created a lover so emotionally incapable of love. He had chased me across the country. He had shown up in front of me. He had every chance to apologize. And yet, instead of asking for forgiveness, instead of making things right, he was standing here demanding to know why I hadn't crawled back to him. Why haven't you come back to me? Why do I have to be the one to come back? Why should we get back together at all? Does one apology in a relationship mean I have to keep apologizing forever? Hadn't I spent years loving fiercely, fighting hard, sacrificing everything all so that I could have respect, love, and devotion in return? I finally exhaled, fully. Then I met his gaze and said, because I don't want to. I had never imagined that saying those words would feel so liberating. I had won. Not just my self-respect. Not just my dignity. But myself, the version of me that I had lost over time. Mike opened his mouth, but for a long time nothing came out. Then finally he asked why. Because I'm exhausted. Mike, I never know when the next breakup is coming. I never know what meaningless reason it'll be over next time. I feel so alone. Like I've spent this entire relationship chasing after you, always trying to catch up, always running after something that was never truly mine. And somewhere along the way I lost myself. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mike? It wasn't until after we broke up that I realized just how full my life could be. I no longer had to be afraid of fights that could erupt at any moment. I no longer had to brace myself for another inevitable breakup. I no longer had to walk on eggshells, constantly worried about when the next storm would hit. For the first time I was my own center of gravity. I was in control of everything. And it felt incredible. Mike looked at me and asked, "You don't love me anymore?" He was taller than me, which always made direct eye contact a bit of a challenge. But this time, I barely had to tilt my chin upward to see the helplessness in his eyes. 10 years, Emily. It took 10 years for this proud man to finally lower his head to me, even if just a little. I guess not anymore. I said it coldly. He took a step forward, reaching for my hand, but I instinctively stepped back. That small movement hurt him. For the first time I saw raw sadness in his eyes. "You're avoiding me?" I let out a quiet laugh. "Do you remember how I used to beg you to take me back?" Mike had always been arrogant. He had grown up being adored, never needing to lower himself for anyone. Even in our relationship, I was the one who pursued him first. Maybe from that moment on, our fate had already been scripted. He had dumped me so many times because of Isabel, his childhood friend. And every time I bent over backward to keep him. I even bought Isabel gifts just so she wouldn't hate me, just so Mike wouldn't leave me over her. Now looking back, I could barely stomach the memory. It was humiliating. I had no self-respect, no self-love. Hearing my words, Mike froze. For a long time he said nothing. Because he knew it. He knew that in this relationship, I had never been treated with dignity. Mike, before you ask someone else a question, ask yourself first. What do you mean? Before asking me if I ever loved you, ask yourself, did you ever love me? I left him standing there. And then I walked away. I didn't look back. Some things in life only feel truly liberating once you finally have the courage to do them. Like realizing how good it felt to leave Mike far behind. From that moment on, he was no longer an obstacle in my life. No matter where he appeared, he had no power over me anymore. For example, at the negotiation table. For some reason, Mike had suddenly become my client. Despite knowing nothing about renewable energy, he had used his money to invest in a mid-sized energy company and was now here, sitting across from my client, trying to make a deal. As the supplier, I was naturally included in the meeting to explain the technical details of the product. Mike didn't seem too concerned about the service package we were offering, but he was very interested in the product itself, which meant I had to be at peak professionalism to handle his questions. By the time the meeting wrapped up, it was already 6 in the evening. Mike stood up with a polite smile. "Thank you for your hard work today, everyone. Let's have dinner together at a nice restaurant." Before I could quietly slip away, my boss, Scott, immediately responded. "That sounds great. There's a highly rated restaurant just around the corner." My treat. I was about to make my escape when Scott suddenly glanced around and asked, "Where's Emily? I just saw her here." I had no choice but to speak up. "In here." Scott turned to me with a pleased expression. "Emily, you should join us. You did an incredible job today. The product demo and explanation were spot on." He then turned to introduce me to Mike. When Emily first joined, I was worried she might be too young and inexperienced. But after working with her, I realized she's one of the most capable people on our team. "Emily, this is Mike White. We'll be collaborating with him moving forward." Mike extended his hand toward me. "Pleasure to meet you." I hadn't expected such an eventful dinner. Just as we arrived at the restaurant and were about to take our seats, we ran into someone familiar. Isabel. She walked up to Mike with ease, her tone casual yet intimate. "Mike, why didn't you tell me you were coming here?" There was so much to read between the lines, from her tone to the choice of words. It was clear that whatever was between them was not simple. Scott, always quick to assess a situation, immediately invited her. "Since you're a friend of Mr. White, why don't you join us for dinner?" Isabel smiled and nodded, then stepped forward and wrapped her arm around Mike's. "Sure, thank you." A colleague standing next to me whispered. "Is she seriously trying to mark her territory? This is a business setting, how unprofessional." Mike, however, didn't immediately follow Isabel inside. Instead, he glanced back at me. I ignored him and excused myself, heading to the restroom. By the time I returned, the food had already started arriving. And just as I walked in, I caught part of Isabel's conversation. "Oh, Mike and I aren't like that. You guys are misunderstanding. He has a girlfriend." To my surprise, one of my colleagues casually added, "Then I feel bad for his girlfriend." Scott sighed and rubbed his forehead. "Why are you even here? You never come to these dinners." I turned to see the person who had spoken. It was the same cute-looking coworker who had whispered to me earlier about Isabel. I hadn't expected her to be so blunt enough to make even the boss nervous. Without hesitation, she replied, "I'm here for the food. If we have to work through dinner, we might as well get a good meal out of it, right?" Scott sighed and made the introductions. "Mr. White, this is Olivia Chase, our product line's lead project manager." Isabel, in a sickly sweet yet condescending tone, said, "Wow, I didn't expect your lead project manager to be so young. Must be very talented." Scott simply closed his eyes, then shot Isabel a look of pure sympathy. Took me about 10 minutes to fully understand why. Olivia finally spoke, her tone as sharp as a knife. "I look young because they're this thing called cosmetic procedures. You spend enough money and it makes you pretty. Unfortunately, it does nothing for intelligence. Otherwise, I'd recommend you try it." She took a casual sip of her drink before continuing, "But even if Botox can't fix your brain, there's something else that might help. It's called a mirror. Or if that's too much effort, just pull out your phone, turn on the front camera and take a good look at yourself. Because if you did, you'd realize you should have stayed home, since lack of intelligence is practically tattooed across your forehead." The room fell completely silent. I almost choked on my drink. But Olivia wasn't done. "If you were actually Mr. White's real girlfriend, I'd at least understand your delusional behavior, maybe even let it slide. But you're not. So what exactly are you showing off for?" She looked around the table, then smirked. "Let's see, other than Emily and me, the rest of this table is full of men. So tell me, who exactly is bothering you?" Then with a raised eyebrow she asked, "And seriously, why are you even here? From the moment you walked in, I could tell you were unemployed. What kind of jobless freeloader just happens to show up at a business dinner, conveniently bumping into an old friend? Who invited you?" With a final bite of food, she calmly wiped her mouth, then turned to Scott. "Scott, that last question was the most important one. I'll leave the mess to you now, but I expect an answer. This could determine whether we reconsider partnerships with certain companies." With that, she grabbed her bag, took my hand and said, "All right, everyone, we're heading out. Enjoy your meal." She shot Scott a playful wink, then dragged me away at full speed. Olivia happened to live in the same neighborhood as me. It was close to our office, which was why so many of our colleagues rented places nearby. As we walked, I kept thinking about how to tell her the truth, that Mike was my ex. She had been so fiercely protective of me tonight, standing up to Isabel and even dragging me out of that awkward dinner. I couldn't keep lying to her. I was still trying to find the right words when she suddenly spoke from my right. "Emily, your ex-boyfriend is trash." I turned to her in shock. She took one look at my expression and burst out laughing, reaching over to pinch my cheek. "Why are you so surprised? Didn't he stop you in front of the office the other day? I left 5 minutes after you and heard the whole thing. And today? Come on, he was so obvious in the meeting, staring at you, asking you all those questions. You really thought Scott didn't notice? He called you over because your ex asked him to. Otherwise, Scott never would have insisted. Sometimes with girls, once a conversation opens up, everything just flows." By the time we reached our neighborhood, we had talked about everything. And that's when I realized she was 4 years older than me. I never would have guessed. Her face was fresh and youthful, her skin flawless, her body proportionate and toned. Looking at her, I felt like I was seeing a different version of life. A version I had never allowed myself to consider. The truth was, I had never struggled financially. I earned a good salary. But back then it was never just about me. I had to fit into Mike's lifestyle. He came from money and his standards were high. To be fair, he was generous with me too, but I wasn't the kind of person who liked to constantly take from others. So to keep up with him, I bought things that weren't even part of my world. A 1,500 facial cleansing device. A 200 bottle of shampoo. A 100 normal size cupcake. None of these were outrageously expensive on their own. But for someone like me, someone with a solid income but also a habit of saving, it was a financial burden. Little by little, it ate away at the small portion of my money that was supposed to be just for me. Olivia noticed my silence and immediately picked up on something. She asked bluntly, "Do you still love him?" I smiled and shook my head. "I wouldn't dare." He shrugged. "Then don't. Or love someone else. And if that doesn't work, try again." We kept talking as we walked, and by the time we reached our neighborhood we realized we lived in adjacent buildings. As we parted ways, she waved at me. "Let's work out together sometime. I'll introduce you to a good trainer." I looked into her genuine eyes and asked, "How about tomorrow?" She immediately grinned. "Perfect. Wait for me after work." Back home, I opened my phone and saw that our colleagues were blowing up the group chat. Damn, Olivia never fails to deliver. First she put Scott in his place, now she's scolding clients too? Olivia replied casually. "Tell him to fire me if he dares." "Fire you? Are you kidding? The man is so terrified of upsetting you he barely even comes into the office anymore." Olivia was the only one in our entire company who could handle the entire product pipeline from design to development to production. She was irreplaceable. And in business, being irreplaceable was the ultimate competitive advantage. It made me think. In her career, Olivia could be fearless because she had the skill and the results to back it up. But in my relationship with Mike, I had made him irreplaceable. And because of that, he had felt entitled to hurt me. His leverage was my love. But what he never understood was that love without reciprocity cannot last forever. One day it will fade. Or worse, it will be replaced. Remember that, Mike. Scott barely stayed mad for half a day before Olivia's new product line went live, and completely won him over. He practically ran to her office, beaming. "My dear Olivia, when do you think we'll be done with testing today?" Olivia, in a voice loud enough for the whole office to hear, said, "Right after we finish afternoon tea." Scott got the hint immediately. "Understood. Afternoon tea is on me." Meanwhile, Mike/'s partnership with the company continued. He seemed very interested in Olivia's new product line and showed up twice to observe. Scott paired me up with Olivia to present the product to him. Olivia rolled her eyes but said nothing. That evening, after the workday ended, Mike asked me out to dinner. "Can I take you to dinner, Emily?" Honestly, I had no interest in entertaining him. But I remembered what Olivia had said: toxic relationships should be cut off quickly, like a clean wound. I was glad I took her advice. Because that night, I finally heard Mike say something I never thought I'd hear. An apology. Sitting across from me, his eyes were red and he whispered, "I'm sorry, Emily. I hurt you. Can you forgive me? I swear I'll never suggest breaking up again. If you agree to marry me, we can get married immediately." Who would have thought? The marriage proposal I had begged for, dreamed of, cried over for 10 years, was finally here. And yet all I could think was, how funny. A year ago, even just a few months ago, I would have been ecstatic. But now it was just ridiculous. This time, I asked him the question. "Why do you want to marry me, Mike?" His answer was immediate. "Because I love you, Emily. I can't live without you. The time we've been apart, I realized that you were like air to me. I never noticed it before, but the moment I lost you, I couldn't breathe." Oh, what a grand and noble declaration. If only I could feel his sincerity. But isn't love something that should be felt, not just spoken? Otherwise, wouldn't every hollow confession be the truth? I looked at him, his eyes reflecting nothing but me. "Mike, do you know what you taught me?" He stared at me, waiting. I smiled. "You taught me that no matter who you lose, you can still live just fine." I picked up my phone, slipped it into my pocket and stood up. Still smiling, I said, "I'm giving you this lesson today. You can take your time learning it, starting with this dinner all by yourself." I turned and walked away. This time I didn't glance back. Not in the mirror by the door, not in the brief moment before turning away. I didn't care what his reaction was. For the first time I was free. And it had only taken me 6 months to be reborn. All wounds heal. With time they scab over. And then, one day they become nothing more than a faint mark on your skin, a reminder of what was but no longer hurts. 2 years later, the product line Olivia and I developed was finally profitable. Every minute new earnings were being logged. Between meetings, Olivia leaned over and asked, "Coffee this afternoon? There's a place with an amazing cappuccino." I glanced at my unfinished work and smiled. "Oh, pass. He wasn't giving up that easily." "Fine. But you are coming to meet the guy I set you up with, right?" I raised an eyebrow. "Wait, this is about a date." He grinned. "Of course. He's a friend of mine, super cute. 1 year younger than you." I opened my mouth to refuse, but before I could, she narrowed her eyes. "You're not actually thinking about getting back with Mike, are you?" Olivia had never hidden her disdain for Mike. Even after all these years, even after our successful partnership, she still worried that I might fall back into my old ways. I laughed, shaking my head. "Fine. We'll go. I like cute guys. He sounds promising." Turns out he really was cute. Not just good looking but full of life. Effortlessly charming. Even Mike would have felt inferior standing next to him. One evening he was dropping me off at the office when we ran straight into Mike. Mike froze. Then disappeared for 3 days. Olivia smirked. "He's home nursing his wounds." "Good. Let him. After all, I healed mine on my own. And I had better things to do, like go on my next date." That's my story. Thank you for being here. I hope it maybe also gave you some inspirations to think about. If you have any thoughts, drop them in the comments below. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow with another story. Until then, take care.